Hack observed the gathering of pilots in the briefing room. Just a week had passed since their triumphant arrival at Kit's, but it felt like a lifetime ago. The excitement of victory had given way to a tense anticipation of the challenges that lay ahead. Captain Jeb Sheets stood at the center of the room, his weathered face set in lines of determination as he addressed the assembled allies. Hack couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as he watched his captain command the attention of this diverse group of racers. "All right, people," Jeb began, his voice carrying easily across the room. "We've shown what we can do when we work together. But this next race? It's going to push us to our limits." Hack's ears perked up as Jeb activated a holographic display, revealing a swirling mass of colorful gases interspersed with countless asteroids of varying sizes. "The nebula gauntlet," Jeb continued, gesturing to the display. "A maze of asteroids hidden within a nebula that plays havoc with our sensors. Navigation's going to be a nightmare, and that's putting it mildly." As Jeb delved into the details of the race, Hack's mind raced with calculations and potential strategies. The nebula's interference with their sensors would make his job as navigator exponentially more difficult. He'd have to rely on instinct as much as data, a thought that both terrified and exhilarated him. Jeb's voice cut through Hack's musings. "Hoffman, I barely saw your ship in the last race. What happened out there?" Hack turned to see the older captain step forward, his face a mix of embarrassment and grim determination. "Well," Hoffman began, rubbing the back of his neck. "Let's just say our repair crew had a different idea of race ready than we did. We barely made it out of the starting gate before half our systems went haywire. Spent most of the race just trying to keep our ship in one piece." Hoffman's expression darkened. "We were in last place for a while there. Thought it might be the end of us. But my crew, they pulled off a miracle in those final hours. We managed to push past one other ship right at the end. Crossed the finish line second to last, but alive. It was too close for comfort, I'll tell you that." A murmur of sympathy and respect ran through the gathered pilots. Hack felt a chill run down his spine, remembering the sabotage attempts they'd discovered on the Broken Promise. It seemed their allies faced similar dangers, with even higher stakes. Before Jeb could respond, the door to the briefing room slid open, revealing the familiar face of Cruz. The diplomat looked even more harried than usual as he made his way to the front of the room. Captain Sheets Cruz nodded to Jeb before addressing the group. "I have updates from the race officials that you all need to hear." Hack leaned forward, his fur standing on end with anticipation. Cruz took a deep breath before continuing. "The good news is, they've decided to allow the alliances to continue. Your coalition is officially recognized." A cheer went up from the gathered pilots, but Cruz held up a hand to quiet them. "However," he said, his voice grave, "they're introducing measures to balance what they're calling the unfair advantage of your alliance. There will be more racers in this upcoming event, many of them specifically tasked with, well, let's just say they're not here to make friends." Hack exchanged a worried glance with Killian, who had been standing quietly at the back of the room. "That's not all," Cruz went on. "There are whispers of new rules coming down the pipeline. Nothing concrete yet, but be prepared for anything. They're determined to make this as challenging as possible for you all." As Cruz finished his briefing, a tense silence fell over the room. Hack could almost feel the weight of this new information settling on everyone's shoulders. Jeb was the first to break the silence. "Well, folks," he said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, "looks like we've got them running scared. They wouldn't be changing the rules if we weren't making a difference." A ripple of determined nods passed through the group. Hack felt a surge of admiration for Jeb's ability to rally their spirits in the face of adversity. "All right," Jeb continued, turning back to the holographic display of the nebula. "Let's break this course down piece by piece. Hack, I want your thoughts on navigation strategies." As Hack stepped forward to share his initial ideas, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The nebula loomed before them, a swirling challenge filled with unseen dangers. But as he looked around at the determined faces of their allies, at Jeb's unwavering confidence, he felt a spark of hope. They had overcome impossible odds before. Whatever this nebula gauntlet threw at them, whatever new obstacles the officials placed in their path, they would face it together. And maybe, just maybe, they would emerge on the other side, having taken one more step towards the freedom and justice they all longed for. As the briefing continued, Hacked immersed himself in the tactical discussions, his mind already racing with the calculations and instincts that would guide them through the cosmic storm ahead. The nebula gauntlet awaited, and the Broken Promise and its allies would be ready. The starting klaxon blared, and Hacked felt the familiar lurch as the Broken Promise shot forward, plunging into the swirling masses of the nebula. Almost immediately, his console erupted with warnings as their sensors struggled to penetrate the dense gases surrounding them. Status report. Jeb's voice cut through the tension on the bridge. Hack's paws flew over his console, trying to make sense of the conflicting data. Sensors are scrambled, Captain. Visibility is down to less than 100 meters in all directions. I'm picking up gravitational disturbances, but I can't pinpoint the asteroids causing them. Well, that's just perfect, Killian growled from his station. We're flying blind in a cosmic obstacle course. Jeb's face was a mask of concentration as he guided the ship through the colorful haze. Hacked, I need options. How do we navigate this mess? Hack's mind raced. They had prepared for sensor interference, but the reality was far worse than they had anticipated. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Captain, the nebula gases. They're not uniform. If we can analyze the flow patterns around solid objects, we might be able to detect the asteroids indirectly. Jeb nodded sharply. Do it. Recalibrate our sensors to focus on gas density and movement patterns. As Hacked worked feverishly to implement his idea, the first challenges of the race made themselves known. A ship suddenly loomed out of the mist ahead of them, banking hard to avoid a collision. Hostile contact, Killian shouted, his hands moving to the weapons controls. Hold fire, Jeb commanded. We can't risk hitting an asteroid with stray shots. Evasive maneuvers only for now. The Broken Promise weaved through the nebula, narrowly avoiding both the aggressive competitor and the hidden asteroids that Hacked was only just beginning to detect. Captain Hacked called out, excitement creeping into his voice. I think I've got something. Translating the gas flow data to the main view screen now. The bridge's main display flickered to life, showing a ghostly outline of their surroundings. The swirling gases took on patterns, revealing the shapes of asteroids hidden within the nebula. Good work, Jeb said, a hint of pride in his voice. Now let's share this with our allies. They'll need every advantage they can get in this mess. As Hacked transmitted the sensor recalibration data to their allied ships, he couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. They were not just racing for themselves anymore, they were leading, innovating, showing the way forward for their entire coalition. The race pressed on, a deadly dance through the nebula's hidden obstacles. Hack's new detection method proved invaluable, but it wasn't perfect. More than once they heard the sickening crunch of metal as less fortunate ships collided with unseen asteroids. We've lost contact with the starburst, Killian reported grimly, referring to one of their allied ships. Last transmission indicated a critical hull breach. A somber silence fell over the bridge. They all knew the risks, but the reality of losing allies was still hard to bear. Jeb's voice was steady as he broke the silence. We honor them by pressing on, by winning this race and changing the system that put us all here. As they pressed deeper into the nebula, the challenges only grew. The asteroid field became denser, requiring split-second decisions and perfect coordination between Hack's navigation and Jeb's piloting. Suddenly, a barrage of energy blasts lit up the nebula around them. 3 ships had emerged from the mist, clearly intent on taking out the leaders of the Alliance. Evasive action, Jeb called out, sending the Broken Promise into a series of wild maneuvers. Hack's paws flew over his console, calling out safe paths through the asteroid field, even as Killian returned fire. It was chaos, a 3-dimensional battle in a constantly shifting landscape of gas and stone. As they wove through the assault, narrowly avoiding both enemy fire and massive asteroids, Hacked caught glimpses of their allies joining the fray. Captain Yara's ship swept in from above, laying down covering fire that forced one of their attackers to break off. The battle raged on, a testament to the strength of their alliance and the determination of those who sought to break it. But as the immediate danger passed and they pressed on through the nebula, Hacked couldn't shake a feeling of unease. They had survived this challenge, yes, but at what cost? And what greater dangers lay ahead in the heart of the nebula gauntlet? As the swirling gases parted to reveal an even denser field of asteroids, Hacked steeled himself for what was to come. The race was far from over, and the true test of their skills, their technology, and their alliance was yet to come. The broken promise forged ahead, leading their allies deeper into the unknown, ready to face whatever the nebula and their opponents might throw at them next. As the broken promise plunged deeper into the nebula, Hacked felt his fur stand on end. The asteroid field had become a writhing mass of stone and ice, barely visible through the swirling gases that surrounded them. His modified sensors were working overtime, struggling to keep up with the rapidly changing environment. Captain Hacked called out, his voice tense, "We're entering the densest part of the field. Asteroid proximity is increasing exponentially." Jeb's hands moved with inhuman precision across the controls. "Understood. Killian, divert all non-essential power to shields and maneuvering thrusters. We're going to need every ounce of agility we can muster." The ship weaved through the asteroid field, a deadly dance that required perfect coordination between Hack's navigation and Jeb's piloting. Massive rocks loomed out of the mist, only to be avoided at the last second. More than once, Hacked felt the ship shudder as smaller debris impacted their shields. Suddenly, Killian's voice cut through the tension. "Multiple contacts closing fast. Looks like some of our friends have decided to make things interesting." No sooner had the words left his mouth than energy blasts lit up the nebula around them. 3 ships had emerged from the cover of the asteroids, clearly intent on taking out the leaders of the Alliance. "Evasive maneuvers," Jeb ordered, sending the broken promise into a series of wild spins and dives. Hack's mind raced as he called out safe paths, trying to navigate not just the asteroid field but also the incoming fire. It was a 3-dimensional chess game where every move could mean the difference between survival and obliteration. As they wove through the assault, Hacked caught glimpses of their allies joining the fray. Captain Yara's ship swept in from above, laying down covering fire that forced one of their attackers to break off. Hoffman's vessel, despite its earlier troubles, maneuvered with surprising agility, using the asteroids themselves as shields against enemy attacks. But the intensity of the battle was taking its toll. Hacked watched in horror as one of their allied ships, the Stargazer, took a direct hit that sent it spinning into the path of a massive asteroid. "Stargazer's been hit," Hacked cried out, his paws flying over the console as he tried to calculate a safe path to assist. Jeb's face was grim as he made the call. "We can't reach them in time. Yara, Hoffman, can either of you assist?" But before their allies could respond, the Stargazer disappeared in a blinding flash as it collided with the asteroid. The comm channel filled with a brief scream cut horribly short. A somber silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the constant alerts from Hack's navigation system. They all knew the risks, but the reality of losing allies was a bitter pill to swallow. Jeb's voice was steady as he broke the silence. "We honor them by pressing on, by winning this race and changing the system that put us all here." The battle raged on, a testament to the strength of their alliance and the determination of those who sought to break it. Hack's innovative navigation techniques kept them one step ahead, but the constant stress was taking its toll. His paws ached from the non-stop calculations, and he could see the strain etched on the faces of his crewmates. Just when it seemed they might break free of the worst of the asteroid field, a massive gravitational disturbance rocked the ship. What in the cosmic void was that? Killian growled, struggling to keep his weapons targeted on their pursuers. Hack's eyes widened as he interpreted the sensor data. It's a rogue planetoid. Must have been hidden by the nebula. Its gravity is pulling everything towards it. Sure enough, the asteroids around them began to shift, drawn inexorably towards the unseen mass. Ships, both allied and hostile, struggled against the sudden gravitational pull. "All ships, this is Captain Sheets." Jeb's voice rang out over the comm. Form up on the broken promise. We're going to use the planetoid's gravity to slingshot us through the worst of this field. Hacked, plot us a course. Everyone else, hang on tight. This is going to get rough. As Hacked frantically calculated their trajectory, using the planetoid's gravity to their advantage, he couldn't help but feel a mix of terror and exhilaration. They were attempting something that bordered on suicidal, but if it worked. The broken promise led the charge, their allied ships falling into formation behind them. As they approached the unseen planetoid, Hacked felt the ship groan under the immense gravitational forces. For a heart-stopping moment he feared they might be torn apart. But Jeb's piloting was flawless. They swung around the planetoid in a wide arc, using its gravity to fling them forward at incredible speed. The maneuver catapulted them through the densest part of the asteroid field in seconds, leaving their pursuers scrambling in their wake. As they emerged on the other side, battered but intact, a ragged cheer went up from the crew. They had survived the heart of the Nebula Gauntlet, proving once again that the Alliance was a force to be reckoned with. But Hack knew better than to celebrate too early. They had overcome this challenge, yes, but at a cost. And as the nebula began to thin, revealing the final stretch of the race, he couldn't shake the feeling that the greatest test was yet to come. As the broken promise emerged from the densest part of the nebula, Hack allowed himself a moment of relief. The swirling gases were thinning, revealing the star-studded expanse of open space ahead. But the race was far from over. Status report, Jeb called out, his voice hoarse from hours of issuing commands. Hack's paws danced across his console. We're in the lead, Captain, but only just. 3 hostile ships on our tail, and, wait, he paused, double-checking his readings. 2 more coming in fast from the port side. They must have found a shortcut through the nebula. Killian growled from his station. Sneaky bastards. Bet they lost a few ships finding that route. Jeb's face was grim as he assessed the situation. Hacked, where are our allies? Hoffman and Yara are right behind us, Hacked reported. 3 other allied ships made it through as well, but they're lagging. The nebula took its toll. As if to emphasize Hack's point, a barrage of weapons fire lit up the space around them. The hostile ships were making their move, determined to take out the leaders of the Alliance before they could claim victory. Evasive maneuvers, Jeb ordered, sending the broken promise into a series of wild spins and dives. Killian, return fire, but be careful. We don't want to hit our own people. The next few minutes were a blur of frantic action. Hack's navigation skills were pushed to the limit as he guided them through the crossfire, calling out threats and opportunities in rapid succession. Killian's marksmanship was impeccable, disabling 2 of their pursuers with well-placed shots. But the odds were still against them. As they approached the final stretch, with the finish line a tantalizing glimmer in the distance, Hack's sensors picked up a disturbing reading. Captain, he called out, his voice tight with concern. I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from one of the hostile ships. They're overloading their core. Jeb's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. They're going to take us all out in one blast. Hacked, options. Hack's mind raced, calculations and possibilities flashing through his thoughts. There was a way, but it would cost them their lead and possibly the race. We can ride the shockwave, Hack said, his paws already plotting the course. If we position ourselves just right, it'll propel us forward. But he hesitated. But what? Jeb pressed. But we'd need to slow down first, let the blast catch us from behind. We'd lose our lead, and there's no guarantee we could regain it. For a split second, Jeb hesitated. Everything they had fought for hung in the balance. Then, his jaw set with determination. Do it. Alert our allies. We're not losing anyone else today. Hacked felt a surge of pride as he transmitted the plan to Hoffman and Yara. This was why they followed Jeb, why the Alliance looked to him as a leader. Even with victory in sight, he wouldn't sacrifice others for personal gain. The next moments were a symphony of precision, timing, and coordination. The broken promise slowed, allowing their allies to catch up. As one unit, they positioned themselves to ride the impending shockwave. The explosion, when it came, was blinding. Hack's sensors overloaded, leaving them flying blind for crucial seconds. The ship groaned and shuddered under the immense forces, systems flickering as they were pushed to their limits. When Hack's vision cleared, he was greeted by a sight that made his heart soar. They were alive, their allies intact beside them, and ahead, rapidly growing larger, was the finish line. "We've got company," Killian shouted. The remaining hostile ships had survived as well, and they were closing fast. What followed was a mad dash to the finish. The broken promise strained against its own limitations, pushing for every bit of speed. Hoffman and Yara's ships flanked them, forming a protective wedge against the incoming attacks. In the final moments, as energy blasts sizzled past them and the finish line loomed large, Hack realized something extraordinary. They weren't just racing for themselves anymore. The Alliance moved as one, each ship covering the others, ensuring that it wasn't just the broken promise that would cross that line. With a final burst of speed that seemed to draw on the last reserves of both ship and crew, the broken promise crossed the finish line. Mere seconds behind, Hoffman and Yara's ships followed, with the rest of their allies close on their heels. The bridge erupted in cheers and embraces. They had done it. Against all odds, through nebula and asteroid and betrayal, they had emerged victorious. As the adrenaline of the moment faded, Hack found himself reflecting on the race they had just run. They had entered the nebula gauntlet as a loose coalition. They emerged as something more, a true team, bound by shared struggle and sacrifice. Jeb's voice cut through the celebrations, somber but filled with pride. "We won today, not just for ourselves, but for every racer who dreams of a fair system. For the Stargazer and all those we've lost along the way. This victory is theirs as much as ours." As they docked at the finish line station, preparing to face whatever new challenges the race officials might throw their way, Hack knew one thing for certain. The Nebula Gauntlet had changed them, had changed the very nature of these races. They were no longer just prisoners running a deadly gauntlet for the amusement of others. They were revolutionaries, each race a step towards dismantling the corrupt system that had enslaved them. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.